So today is the day that we're going to be cleaning out our chicken house. It absolutely needs to be cleaned. It's disgusting. Yesterday, my compost was ready. It's fully finished. It took about 6 months to make all of this compost. I have some videos, a couple videos back of us making these about, I think it was November of last year. This is when we started making compost. And yesterday I went ahead and put all of the compost in one side. I have 2 compost bins here. I took one of them and put them in just one big pile because I need to start my other composting. It'll take another 6 months, so by hopefully November this next compost will be done. So we're cleaning out the chicken house today. We're going to put it into the empty spot that I cleaned out yesterday. And then right here, I've been saving a whole bucket of chicken scraps on my back porch, and I will be putting it into the empty side as well. So we're going to be starting our new composting for this fall. And let me open this up and I'm going to show you how much compost we have. And then yes, I took about not even half of this yesterday and I put it on top of the tomato buckets. I put like an inch or 2 on top of the tomato buckets yesterday. So I'm going to show you how much I have left over. So this is my summer compost that I'll be using all summer long. And then this will be my fall compost. It'll be ready in November. So this is how much compost that we actually have here. It's actually quite a bit, but it goes pretty fast. I used about almost half of this compost. There was a lot more yesterday, but I took about half of it, and over here I put it onto the tomato buckets. So you can see here, it's all about 1 or 2 inches on these buckets. Got that done yesterday. It'll help suppress the weeds and still give nutrients whenever it rains or if I'm watering it with the sprinklers. So the rest of the compost I will, once I start ripping out like my cabbage and garlic and onions, I will just take that compost and put a thin layer those beds and keep rotating my cycle of keeping fresh compost on there and keeping the soil healthy. So I'm really happy how this all broke down. And then this side is empty right now. So I'm going to take my bucket of kitchen scraps. I'm going to put it in the center on the bottom down here, and my husband is actually cleaning out the chicken house over there right now. And we will take all of that chicken stuff, bedding, poop, and everything, and we will put it on here, and we'll continue to put all of our scraps, kitchen scraps and cow manure and our brown and green material into this side. And we'll just do exactly what we did, like we did this, which this compost was actually a winter compost. So there's kitchen scraps, straw, hay, and cow manure. That's my winter compost. So this one will be a little different. This one will be basically the same thing, but there's going to be a lot more stuff coming out of the garden that we just need to compost, or we'll get a lot more green material since it's summertime. This year, I'm actually growing some comfrey, and my plan is with comfrey is to use it as a green manure for my compost. Really excited to actually try that this year. I will take you guys over there and show you what the plant looks like right now. It's still pretty young, but my goal is the next couple of years is to grow as much comfrey as possible during the summertime so I can cut it down and use it as my green material so I don't have to be raking up grass clippings and all that kind of stuff all the time. But we're going to be working on this today. This is all emptied. It's ready to go. You would not believe how many worms are inside of this compost. I am so happy to see all these worms. There's probably hundreds of worms whenever I was scooping out some of this yesterday. And that just means it is a very good quality compost. So happy about that. But I'm going to get to work on this. I'm going to go ahead and dump my bucket, and then my husband's going to bring over the chicken bedding. Right, I'm gonna take you guys over and show you where I'm growing my comfrey. And I'm probably gonna plan to just grow this whole thing in comfrey next year. So I made this little concrete block planter. We have so many concrete blocks that are just stacked over by the pig house, and I thought I would just use this for a little garden bed. So it's this half of it over here. I planted some dahlias last year and it did amazing. And this is more broke down mulch into soil. And then this half over here is more of mulch. So my dahlias on this side is not doing so great just because it's not broken down enough. And it's just more of a fresher mulch and they're just not liking it. You can kind of see they're yellow, not doing so great. So probably gonna take a loss on my dahlia flowers this year, which is totally fine. I'm not worried about it. I'll just try again next year. So next year, whenever this mulch gets broken down from the snow and rain and the weather, so next year it'll be broken down way more and I can grow something else in here. But that something else is probably gonna be comfrey. So right here, this is where I'm growing my comfrey for my composting. So it's this plant right here, and then there's another plant right here. And they're doing really good. So I'm really happy that they're surviving right here. And I got some flowers that the bees really love growing in front. I grew these at the last house and I absolutely loved them. And they do really attract the really good beneficial insects. But this comfrey has really taken off. I just started it this spring and it's already getting this big. So what I'm going to do is whenever it gets bigger, I'm going to start cutting off these leaves and I'm going to layer it into my compost. And this is going to act as a green material for my compost, and it's supposed to be really good for your composting. It has so many nutrients inside these leaves. So I am so excited to get this started and try it out. But next year, I think my plan really is I'm going to fill this whole entire bed up in comfrey. And that'll just give me that much more to compost. So walking over here to the tomato buckets, get a closer look at what I did yesterday of how I put all the compost in here. Going up close here, this is the compost. There's about 1 or 2 inches on top of these buckets. And believe it or not, whenever I turned over these buckets in that cover crop, it brought up so many weed seeds. And we have been weeding these buckets every week. So now that I have this compost on here, it's gonna help me not get so many weeds. So you can see the difference here, like all of this will be turned into this black gold in 6 months. Something that I started this year too was getting a thermometer, and get it up close here. And I like to try to get in the range of 100 to 130 to get it hot and cooking. So this has actually been a game changer of ordering one of these. I actually probably need a longer one, but this one actually works pretty good if I just sink it really down into the center. So this is something that's really helped me see how hot it's really getting, and then when it drops temperature, I know when to turn the compost, because you got to turn it every so often to keep the heat in it cooking down. So this has really been a game changer of ordering one of these, and I'll link it down in my description below if you guys want to try this. We don't have a tractor or anything, so we hand turn all of this by ourselves. So when it gets to this stage, for the very first stage, the first couple months is super hard to turn this over because it's heavy, and usually the pile will get up really high whenever we keep adding to it. And then it just makes it difficult to turn. But once you get into it a couple months, it'll start sinking down, and then it'll start turning better. And honestly, it's worth it. It's worth the hard work because look at all this stuff. If I was to buy this at a store, this would cost so much money. And I am so happy that we're actually taking the time to do composting. So I'll have my summer and fall compost, so hopefully we can stay away from buying compost from the store, which I actually had to buy a few bags this spring because this was not ready yet. But now hopefully I'm in business now. I have a summer and a fall, so I can just work on just using what we have and go from there, and hopefully we won't have to buy any more. So now I'll start seeing these tomatoes really take off, because last year when I did this, when I added all the compost, the tomatoes really loved it and they started growing so good. So from now on, I'm sure we're going to start seeing these tomatoes really grow after adding this compost on here. And I'm just excited that we're not going to have to weed out any weeds, because actually it was getting pretty bad there for a couple weeks. We'd have to come out here and hand weed all of these buckets just because we turned over the soil. But I can tell a difference in this year that using that cover crop, I mean, look at these tomatoes. I mean, they're starting to form already. There's some right here. And these leaves are super green, healthy looking. So I really believe that that cover crop that I did in these buckets really has improved the soil that I'm using. So I'll probably continue to do that for next year. So it's exciting. We're starting to get a lot of flowers on these tomatoes. So we will be getting tomatoes soon. So excited about that. We are the second week of June, so it won't be long and we will start seeing a lot of tomatoes on here. I'm excited to get our canning going, because last year we canned up a bunch of tomato sauce and we are completely out of tomato sauce. So that's my focus this year. That's one thing that we use a lot of, is tomato sauce. So my focus is to make tons of tomato sauce this year. I always try to just go off of what we truly eat, and that is one of the things that we actually truly eat the most of. So tomato sauce is definitely in store for canning this year. So this time we're going to use some pine chips for our chicken bedding, for summer bedding. And I actually like using pine chips a lot better than using hay and straw, because actually this breaks down a lot faster than the straw and hay, and it's a lot easier to turn because it's lighter weight than the straw and hay. So we're just going to put this bag inside of this chicken house for summer, and it'll probably be a lot cooler for the chickens as well. So I'm going to be harvesting most of my spring cabbage. They are looking absolutely beautiful, and it is supposed to be in the 90s this week, so I'm at risk of them splitting just because it's going to be super hot, and there's not going to be any rain hardly in the forecast this week. We've been getting rain every day, but now the forecast actually looks like there's not going to be rain for at least a week, so there is a high risk of these cabbages splitting. So I'm going to uncover all of this net, and I'm going to show you guys how beautiful these really are, and I'm going to start storing them into a cooler. I don't want to process all of them today because that just take too long, and we actually have plans tonight. So last year I just stored them into a cooler and I just worked through them as I could through the week. So I'm just going to do that exact same thing. I'm just going to put them in a cooler with some ice till I'm ready to preserve them. I still have quite a bit in the freezer from fall, so I might actually give some of these to some family members and then process the rest of them. My husband is mowing the yard right now, so bear with me with the noise. But this is what I have left. So, okay, this half is a totally different variety than the half that I had down here. So I believe most of those are going to take a little bit longer if I remember correctly. I have it wrote down inside. I'm going to double check because I believe they are a longer variety on the days. So I'm going to double check that because it makes sense because there's so many that aren't ready yet. And then this half, okay, so I have 3 that did not really do much. You can see here it really didn't form a ball at all. Same with this one. There's a tiny little ball in the center here. And then this one, actually, I could probably go ahead and harvest it. It is a really tiny ball. It's probably about the size of my hand, like a softball. So I'll probably go ahead, give this one a few days, and I'll probably go ahead and harvest it because it is at risk of splitting because it is going to be hot. But the 3 that did not make it, I harvested, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So today I harvested 7 big cabbages out of that variety that is lesser days. And then I'll have to watch this other variety over here. So that's why I like to write everything down. Next year if I don't want to plant these just because they take forever on the maturity days, I probably won't do it. You can just see, I mean, they are starting to curl in. I mean, they're super tiny, nowhere near ready. But I'm gonna look at the days of harvest, and if it's a lot longer, I'm gonna give them another week or so, because they should be coming out pretty soon the next couple weeks. But they're not as big as this variety over here that I just harvested. So I might just go ahead and just focus on this variety next year and completely take out this variety. But like I said, I'm gonna give it a couple more weeks and I'm gonna look and see what these do. And if I don't like it, I won't be growing it again. But I'm going to cover this back up with a net to keep the worms out. And then keep an eye on these, which I know these 2 are probably a total loss in my experience. I don't think these will do anything. And then I'll probably harvest that one in the next couple days. Still use it, still edible. And then keep an eye on those. And then once I'm done with this whole row, I will do what I did with these rows right here. Once I rip everything out, I'll put a layer of compost down, some calcium, and then I will seed my buckwheat. You can see here, this is what I did on some of my last videos when I took out my cauliflower and broccoli. Look how tall these are. It's almost at the time of cutting it down, where it's almost in bloom. Once it blooms, this buckwheat, you can see right here, let me focus in. Once it starts flowering is the best time to cut down buckwheat and either work it into the soil, act as a green manure, or like I do, I just lay it on the surface. And then I'll come back in with my fall crops and plant inside of this. And it'll be ready to go for my fall crops here in a couple month or so. So that's what I'm going to do with this row, is do the exact same thing. It's just a continuing cycle over and over and over. Keeps the soil really healthy, and that's what my goal is always keeping the soil healthy. I don't worry about trying to keep the plant healthy. I worry about keeping my soil healthy.